So if you're watching this, you're no stranger to the fact that the Fallout franchise can be beaten in many different ways. Hell, sometimes you can even beat them without even attacking a single thing. So in today's video, we're gonna find out, can you beat Fallout New Vegas as a Caravan guard? Now let me start by saying, this isn't a Crimson Caravan guard, this isn't a Happy Trails Caravan guard. No, this is just a run-of-the-mill traveling merchant caravan guard. That means the only items that I have access to are metal armor, leather armor, the 10mm pistol and submachine gun, the 9mm submachine gun, and the laser pistol. That means no grenades, no 9mm pistol, nothing. So I'm going to start by saying this was actually my second attempt at this challenge, because the first one I tried doing on stream and thought that the guards actually had access also to the caravan shotgun and the 9mm pistol. Turns out they didn't. So first of all, character creation. I'm just a wish version of Alchest Breach. The special stats are pretty straightforward. Only thing is, I'm left with 5 extra points that I have to put into somewhere, so I end up just dumping them into intelligence so that we can get extra skill points as we go around. We go through the personality test. I set my tag skills to guns, melee weapons and sneak, which I find quite funny considering the fact that the caravan guards don't actually get access to melee weapons. We dump all of the courier stash items into a sarsaparilla crate, we rob Doc Mitchell blind, and then we jump outside. So first things first, when we're outside, we go God fucking damn it. We go to Victor's shack, and it turns out one of the mods that I've got installed has entirely changed around Victor's shack. Now if you feel as though this fails a run, feel free to let me know. However, there's no game breaking items in here, there are no early access to guns or anything like that, and in fact it actually takes away the weapon repair kit that I wanted to get from here. Anyway, we take the items, we go over to Chet and start selling everything. We get our first suit of leather armor, get some extra energy cells, which by the way, I'm getting all these bulk energy cells, I will never use them throughout the entire run. And then we go meet Sunny Smiles. We go out and shoot some bottles because I looked at her funny or something like that. I don't know, I wasn't listening. And then we go out to fight some geckos. Turns out the laser pistol actually decimates the geckos. I save someone from being eaten alive, I get given some purified waters, and then we do Sunny's survival challenge. I go and grab some Xander root from the Legion, go kill a scorpion and some bloatflies, get my hands on a Brock flower, do some grave robbing, and return to Sunny. Once we've done that, I go murder a family of geckos for Barton Thorn, grab the 10mm pistol and the ammo that he wanted, put them to good use into his face, and then I go and just dunk on some powder gangers, almost meet my death to a giant rad scorpion, kill some coyotes, go and do some prospecting, pick a lock to a safe, and then go and wipe out some cazadors. That's right, cazadors. They are not that hard. Eventually we get all of the skills up to the level where we can pass the checks, and then we get to fight off the powder gangers. This was a lot easier than I thought it would be. We then start making our way down to Prim, kill a bunch more geckos, wipe out some radroaches, and the NCR trooper who normally stops you to tell you not to go into Prim, I end up watching him run straight over to Prim. Turns out more of my mods are working their magic. There are a ton of convicts and a ton of NCR just going to absolute war. While I'm out looting corpses, the NCR just wipe the floor with the convicts. I go talk to Johnson Nash, get my hands on a bit more ammo, and go into the Bison Steve. I wasn't expecting it, but the NCR were also in there, and they were just systematically plowing through the convicts. Overall, on the bottom level, I only had to kill 3, because the NCR were just doing my job for me. Getting Beagle, we go upstairs to help the NCR just clear out the Bison Steve and hopefully get my hands on a bit more XP. When we get out, I agree to help Prim get some lore, but instead of listening to a lost puppy, I decide that the NCR is the best thing for Prim. After all, they did just save the place. So I do some parkour off the roof, start heading up the road, and start getting attacked by some convicts. So I run up to what I believed would be the NCR at the top of a hill. Turns out, no. This was my first NCR deserter, And these guys are going to be a consistent thorn in my back. Armed with typically the same stuff that the NCR are, these guys dish out crazy amounts of damage. Eventually, I managed to take him down, make our way down to the rest stop, wipe out a few more raiders, and pay our respects to a lost prospector. We continued down the road to the Mojave outpost, stopping at the Nipton Road gas station just so that we can take out some scorpions and do a little bit more prospecting, and then eventually get up to the outpost. Turns out the statue has moved positions onto the hill just to make room for a few more of my mods. Yeah, you'll notice that the outpost is slightly overcrowded now. Whoopsie! Anyway, we go sell some stuff to Lacey, go talk to Ranger Jackson, head back down the hill, wipe out a few more ants, head back up to Jackson, get a couple of requisition forms accidentally supplied to me, jump back to Prim, talk to Lieutenant Hayes, go back to the outpost, talk to Knight, go back to Prim, and instate Happy McGee as Prim's sheriff. I then go to Ruby Nash to go and get myself some scorpion cakes, make one more trip back to the outpost, and start heading over towards Nipton. Here I fight just a few more raiders, repair up my armor, repair up my guns, go and warn Thomas about the way that people are after stars, and then wipe out one smug bastard that never deserved to live. I jump into Nipton and start systematically taking out all of the Jesus cosplayers, go and meet Woolpez, and let me say, he looks a hell of a lot more fierce with a Yao Guai wrapped around his neck. And then I make yet another trip back to the outpost just to let Sergeant Kilborn and Ranger Ghost know that Nipton's been attacked, just because we all love extra XP. I then go back to Nipton and start making my way up a hill. It's here that I meet resistance. So not only do raiders start blasting my face with grenades, but the moment that I've dealt with them, I turn around only to be attacked by NCR deserters. And at this point, I just thought, nope, I need out of this. So I run to the NCR down the road. Turns out they're in a conflict with Legion. So I carry on running up to Ulysses Ranch, and it turns out that the Legion have taken that place over, but are also under attack by NCR deserters. This pain never stops. Eventually, all of the NCR deserters are dead, and I can make my way down to a bridge and meet up with some traveling merchants. I do some trading with these merchants, and then I just know that they're gonna get attacked, and this time they are not going to survive, because there are, count them, 5 legionnaires, all stationed ready to attack, until I immediately notice, in the distance, there's some NCR coming in. So instead of a guaranteed death of a caravan, turns out now the Legion are getting pincer attacked. NCR one side, Caravan the other. So the Legion get wiped out and we start walking up to Novak. A couple of mole rats get in our way, a couple of raiders get in our way, but we're fine. I make my way down to Ranger Station Charlie, where there's just an all-out conflict going on, NCR versus Legion, and it's just bullets flying everywhere. So I decide that I want none of it and start making a break back to Novak. When I get to Novak, another mod shows its lovely face, and that's a diner where the tent normally is. Only thing is, when I get into the diner, things aren't what they seem.
Gary.
Anyway, I go and speak to Jeannie May, get myself a room that I never use, talk to Cliff, do some trading, and start making my way up to Helios 1. On the way, I stop by Old Lady Gibson, do some more trading. After all, you can never have too much ammo or meds. And when I get to Helios 1, it turns out I don't have the speech skill nor any opportunity to disguise myself because of a challenge, so I can't actually enter the facility. As such, I think that my best bet is to go up to 188. So walking up to where Big Dave normally spawns, I'm met with a world of hurt. A bunch of new raiders have moved in, and they're a lot better armed and a lot better equipped. We're talking laser rifles, combat armor, explosives, you name it. I start off by leading a couple back to Lieutenant Haggerty and the rest of the NCR, but the others don't seem too keen on following. So I decide to Legion it and just run headfirst into battle. That was a terrible decision. There were countless times that I should have died, and even a point where I'd hit 2 hit points. That's real close to the end. Eventually, we managed to make it out of a skirmish alive, only to find that the NCR on the road are under attack by more raiders. Thing is, the NCR have this well in tow, so I decide to duck into a gas station and try to grab a few more healing supplies ready to sell. Walking up the road to the 188 was entirely uneventful. We do a lot more trading once we get to the outpost, and then double back to go over to Boulder City. Realising that I didn't have enough speech skill to convince Jessup to let the prisoners go, I realised I had to go and level up some more. So I started walking over to Fall on Hope so that I could do some missions for them, and remembered there's a Cazador nest just to the west of Fall on Hope. So I go and wipe that out first. Again, they're really not that hard. And then I go and do Quartermaster May's quest. On the way to doing this quest, I am once more met with the NCR deserters. What is it with these bastards eating away my health? No thank you. Anyway, I go and get the supplies for Maze, fight off some Legion, and it turns out it's not just the NCR deserters. No, it's just any gun that does more than 2 bloody damage. So once I've chewed through pretty much all of my healing supplies, I limp and bleed my way back to Fall on Hope, get rewarded, buy some healing supplies just so that I can survive the night, and then move on. On my travels, I end up seeing a band of travelling merchants that have all had their legs crippled. It looked fabulous. Anyway, I make my way down to Novak again, do Dusty McBride's quest, pop a Nightkin, and then decide it's probably a good idea to go and do Come Fly With Me. Again, not quite remembering if I needed a speech skill or not, I decide to utterly decimate every single ghoul that I came across. But it seemed to me like a lot of ghouls just were not spawning. This would have been a brilliant point, also, for me to wipe out the Nightkin down below, but I also know for a fact that with my already dwindling healing supplies, if I ended up pissing them off, I'd have just been stuck in an infinite death loop. So instead I decide to work with them, pop Harland, and get rid of all of his traps from the ground floor, let them know that the stealth boys are no longer there, they've been returned back to Hasbro, and then let all of the ghouls down into the basement. I pilfer whatever valuables that I can, go sell it all off, get both of the required items for the great journey, and then instead decide to go into Helios 1. This was a mistake. This was utterly terrifying. Between the robots that would tear my armor open, the turrets that would utterly shred my health, and then the one robot that shouldn't spawn in there deciding to rear its ugly head right in my face. I'm surprised I made it out of this alive. Anyway, we rerouted the power to the whole region, went back and completed the great journey, and then went and settled things for the Great Khans. On my way to meet my most wealthy employers, Maverick spoke to me. He wanted to show me his new mixtape. Pretty banging. I made a quick stop by the clinic, got myself some implants, made myself a little bit more durable, a little bit smarter, and a little bit stronger. I went to sleep in McLafferty's office, and god damn it, Victor, how the fuck did you even manage to compress your body small enough to fit through the door? Hell, how the hell did you even manage to get that wheel up the steps? Anyway, I went to deliver an invoice, got a guy to stop mooching off his dad, wasted all of my healing supplies getting inside and out of the gun runners alive, decided to be an impromptu debt collector, and then went and murdered my cousin. Yep, I have a cousin called Caleb. After that, I decided to be a little bit of a pimp, and then went and met the love of my life, Cass. And my god, what a treat she was. After we had a few drinks, she decided to tag along with me, so I decided to help her by going to check out her wrecked caravan. After that, we go and see another one, and then I think, maybe I should do the rest of the Crimson Caravan quests before we do anything else with Cass, just in case things go pear-shaped. So let's have a quick fire of what we do. Bottle cap press, run through artillery, solar array, ants, matchmaker.
Oh, it's great to finally meet you.
Hi there. It's great to meet you as well.
I'm glad you made it out here. You're even more stunning up close than you were at a distance.
And you're even more handsome up close. Do you think it'll be okay if I hang around here for a little while, so we can get to know each other better?
Of course it would. I'll have you set up with some quarters with some of the other women.
After that, I go and save some of Argyle's patients, and it's time to raise the bomber. Before that, however, I think it's time to finish off Cass's quest. So we end up getting McLafferty's piece of evidence, no problem. And then... God fucking damn it. I don't have science or lockpick at 75. Guess where all of my level up points are going? To level up, we go and do Mr. House's quests, do a barter check with him, go meet Smiles the clown, we never hear from him again, lull Benny into a false sense of security, only to lop off his head, get spoken to by a guy with small man syndrome, get taken down to House's basement, and on the way to raise the bomber, we finally get our first crash of a run. I'm surprised that it took this long. New Vegas is not known for being stable, especially not with all of my mods. Anyway, we get the bomber out of the water, the boomers agree to help, I decide that Oris doesn't deserve to live today, give Pacer one hell of a trip that he'll never ever forget, and started working on breaking the allegiance between the Khans and the Legion. While down in the cove, I ended up upgrading the Securitrons, and ended up with enough science to be able to break into the Van Graff's safe. So we make yet another stop down at the Mojave outpost. And now the Crimson Caravan and the Van Graffs are in deep shit. And it kind of turns out that I was a little bit preemptive in taking out Papa Khan. Because when I picked up the quest to deal with the Khans, it turns out... Regis wouldn't side with the NCR, so I had to wipe them off the map. Anyway, it's Omerta time and I need to figure out what's going on with them. So instead of figuring out actually what's going on, I decide to just start blasting. This one's for you, Nurbit. But it turns out being stuck in a hailstorm of bullets, alongside having just metal armor and leather armor, chews through your meds like nothing. Doesn't matter how much Med-X I popped, didn't matter how much Psycho I popped, my armor was being decimated by the absolute tirade of bullets. So midway through my slaughter, I decide to go and stock up on meds. Anyway, back to the murder. Once that's done, Colonel Moore decides to tell me that House needs to die. That's fine by me, because if I progress his quest anymore, then the NCR won't like me. So I go and blast him before he can even get out of his tube. Springy. And I'm now tasked with taking out the Brotherhood. I decide to be nice to begin with, walk into the bunker, and they decide to slap a collar on me. That's naughty. Jay doesn't like collars. I'm not a puppy. So anyway, I abide by my captors to begin with. And once a ranger is well out of harm's way and the collar is off my throat, I decide to turn the Brotherhood's own protection against them. While down here, Cass gets her hands on some new swag. We blow up the bunker, and I feel like it's only right to let Cass get a few more kills. Now, we're tasked with protecting the president, and it turns out I was a little bit too preemptive on everything. We got the bomb off, no problem. We dealt with the assassin sniper immediately, so I spend the whole speech just staring at the Legion spy. I mean, the whole speech. Just looking back every now and then. Before we finish things off, I decide that it's time to go and help out Happy Trails. After all, it is a DLC dedicated to a caravan company. Technically. Kind of. It's got Happy Trails in its name, okay? So anyway, I'll go to the Northern Passage, speak to Ricky for some easy XP, sell him some drugs, and it's off to Zion we go. Everyone gets slaughtered, I deal some murder, and I look around and some of these white legs aren't hostile. Why are they not hostile? They should all be trying to kill me. You know what? I'm not even gonna complain. I meet up with my good friend Follows Chalk. He tries telling me how deadly a Yaogwai is. Yeah, no, I'm not going to listen to that. And then go meet up with a man that I've just spent 2 minutes listening to someone else say, don't say his name. Yeah, that worked out real well, didn't it? Anyway, I did some trading, got some repairs done. Turns out I didn't need to bring in anywhere near as much supplies as I did, and it was off to go and find the resources that they need. The compass was easy enough, but on my way to go and get the walkie-talkies, I ended up coming across some white legs, and it turns out they eat through my health like it's nothing. This is going to be a lot harder than I thought it would be. We murderized some geckos, slowly but surely work through some more white legs, take out a big horner whose arse is blocking the way, go get some lunch boxes, because normal lunch boxes just aren't enough apparently, go grab some medical supplies, and meet up with Danny Boy. I convince him to sell me some extra gear. It's actually kinda helpful that I did, because all of it came into use. And then it was time for parts 2 and 3 together. We go into Morning Glory Cave. What I want to know is, why's this cave got morning wood? Take out a few living plants, find a key stashed away, murderize some more white socks, take out a couple of totems, deal with some traps on a bridge, and proceed to slaughter a whole family of bears. I'm sorry, Yogi, these woods aren't yours. Anyway, it's time for the final confrontation of the Zion Valley questline, and I was not expecting it to be this easy. Considering I've just spent the entire DLC being torn apart by the white legs, it was a nice change of pace to be the one doing the tearing apart. Eventually we make it through to the final interaction of the DLC, and this is the first time I've ever, in any playthrough, taken a sneering imperialist perk, and I love, absolutely love this line. Whatever. Joshua, put a cap in General Gobbledygook here. What a line. And with that, we finish the Zion Valley. On my way back, however, does someone want to explain why and how a powder ganger got in here? Let's just start with a simple fact that there are not supposed to be any enemies in the Northern Passage. Period. The only time that there's NPCs is at the very beginning. Now let's add the fact that the powder gangers don't go any further north than Vault 13. What is this powder ganger doing alone so far north? Some questions will never be answered. Finally, we make it to the ending mission, the Battle of Hoover Dam, and it is a righteous slaughter. Even with all of the mods that I've got for both NCR and Legion, the NCR just far outclass the Legion. Doesn't matter what's happening, the NCR just annihilate their defenses. So getting through the actual dam, at least the interior, was not a problem. The problems arise when we get outside. So the NCR are not progressing, which means it requires for me to go and start the Legion spawns and take hits to bring the NCR forward. Eventually, we do manage to get them to move on, but not before I suffer my first death, which also caused me to crash, by the way. Anyway, second time around, I don't die, and we manage to make it through to a second part of the dam. This time I've got rangers with me. A couple of them have brush guns, 3 of them have shotguns. You know what? It's fine. They don't need anti-material rifles. They are rangers. They've got a lot of health. They've got good armor. What could go wrong? And it turns out I'm entirely right. The NCR had 0 issue just tearing through the Legion. But then it happens. I get penance for my hubris. So far, this run for the most part has been an absolute cakewalk. That is until I get into the Legate camp. I shit you not, I spent 3 hours going through this. And let me show you what that 3 hours was spent doing. Initially, it was absolutely no problem. I was expecting a couple of deaths with Legionnaires because at least to start with, it was only myself and Cass. My healing supplies were running low, fair enough. But I was not expecting the sheer numbers in the camp. Ordinarily, on a personal playthrough of this, I can run through, talk down the legate or gun him down before he can even say anything, and it's job done. Not on this run. So when I finally do make it through all the Legion's defenses, death counter in the top left, if you haven't noticed, we get to fighting the legate. Now let's watch that death counter increase. So I'd spent quite literally hours working on a way to defeat him. I didn't want it to be a case of I would speech him down or I would barter him down, because that to me just felt cheap. It was quite diminishing to the run, but I did at least want to get it so that I could fight him one-on-one, or rather 2-on-1. But no, turns out with my barter, I was 1 point off the 90 check after taking all of my drugs, all of my alcohol, absolutely anything that I could, including my magazines, and I was 5 points off on the speech to make it the one-on-one. There was nothing more that I could do. I'd already gone back and gotten as many med supplies as I could. Now, I just had to stick it out. I'd already dropped the difficulty to easy because of just how difficult this encounter was. And that already pained me, so I was not going to take the shame of putting it on very easy. It took a while, but eventually I remembered VAT's defense is a beautiful thing. Going from pretty much no defense to 90% was a massive difference. So I lent into that, made sure that I was using my jet, made sure that I was using my rebound, and just keeping my AP up as high as I could. However, this alone did not prove to be enough. What I ended up doing was trying to rush past the legate so that I could help to take out his Praetorians. Because the biggest issue of this run was here. There were Legionnaires with guns, there were Legionnaires with fists. Yes, Cass had a riot shotgun, which was absolutely melting the Legion, but it still was not doing enough. Paired with the fact that Cass would often literally fly off when the legate would hit her, I needed to think of something else. So I ended up leading him to a tent alongside the rest of the Legion, and one of my stray bullets ended up hitting him and he ran off. Only thing is, he got himself stuck. Only temporarily, but he was stuck, which allowed me to fight through his Legionnaires, and when he came back to me, after I'd already dropped a save, he was holding a marksman carbine. This was incredible. As much as I hated guns, in his hands, this was a blessing, because if he had a gun, he wasn't using his blade. Of course, eventually I ended up slipping up and dying, so I had to fight off some more Legion again, and he was back to using his blade. So my cheap little method still wasn't good enough. It took a few more attempts, but I eventually ended up managing to skip him over to a rock where he was glitching out. So I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to be able to take him out. Nope. No, turns out if he's trying hard enough, he'll just glitch onto it. So I ended up spending a few more lives just looking out for places to go, because it was clear to me that there was no way I was going to be able to beat him, at least not legit. So eventually, I ended up propping myself up on a box, Hail Marying it, and finally killing the legate. And with that, I ended up leveling up, taking the bloody mess perk, and ended up making the legate the physical embodiment of everything that had happened to me for the past 3 hours. Anyway, I go back to the gate, I'm greeted with General Oliver, and we finish a game. Not before I get to level up one more time, of course, so I end up popping those points into survival, because it's a wonder I survived this long. But with that, I proved that yes, you can beat Fallout New Vegas as a Caravan guard. Now my final thoughts on this is, up until that last fight, this was a genuinely fun run. I have never played using solely submachine guns, a 10mm pistol, and a laser pistol. It taught me that I needed to think outside the box, and it taught me about how to use a different build. I really enjoyed this, so you can be damn sure to expect another challenge video in a week's time. Thank you very much.
I am programmed for your pleasure. Please assume the position. Servos active.